Okay, so this is Lecture 5, page 7, Translations and Reflections. So let's go ahead and start off with f of x is equal to the absolute value of x. Now what I want to do is I want to sketch the graph of what happens if I put in x minus 2 inside. So this is what happens. First of all, let me just make a note. I'll just do this in purple so we can see it. But this is where I start with, just real lightly. I'm just going to put these as a dashed line so we can see it in purple. So I have that's y is equal to the absolute value of x. And the question is, what happens as we put in x minus 2? Well, if I put in x minus 2, I have f of x minus 2 is going to be equal to the absolute value of x minus 2. But according to the definition, that's going to be, remember the definition is, it's just whatever the inside is, if it's the inside's greater than 0. So I'm going to have, it's going to be x minus 2 if x minus 2 is greater than or equal to 0, or the negative of it, x minus 2, if the inside x minus 2 is less than 0. Now, this, let me just rewrite this a different way, that's going to turn into x minus 2 if x is greater than or equal to 2. Equal to 2. Bring it over to the other side. I just bring the 2 to the other side. And negative x minus 2 if x is less than 2. Now what that really does is that just really shifts the graph to the right 2 units. So let me do that in red. So what I'm going to do is I'll shift it over 2 units. So if I put in 2 into this thing, obviously I get 0. So 1, 2, I get 0. If I put in 3, I get 1. And if I put in 1, I get 1. And if I graph this out, this is what the graph should look like. So what I've done there in red is just the graph y is equal to f of x minus 2. And what we notice from this picture here is that it really just shifted the graph, the original graph, 2 units. So the graph shifts right 2 units. Okay. So really when you see f of x minus 2, and there was nothing really special about the absolute value, this actually works for any function. If I graph any function and I put in x minus 2, it shifts the whole graph 2 units to the right. Now for this next one, I want to graph negative f of x and negative fx plus 3. So what I'm going to do is first let's graph out. First, let's look at what happens as y is equal to negative f of x. That's going to be the negative absolute value of x. So that's just going to change each sign to negative. That just changes the sign of each y value. Okay, so again I'll do the same thing that I had before. I'm going to graph, I'll graph the absolute value of x in purple, just so we can see it, and we'll watch what happens at each step. So this is y is equal to the absolute value of x. Alright, now if I slap a minus sign in front of it, that just turns everything negative. So here I have 1, 1, it's going to turn into negative 1. 0, 0. Of course, if you slap a minus sign in front of 0, it's still 0. And the negative of 1 is negative 1. So what I've drawn there in red, this is y is equal to negative absolute value of x. Now the next one, 2, if I look at y is equal to the negative absolute value of x plus 3, all this little plus 3 does is it just says it's going to add 3 to each value of x, each y value. Add 3 to each value of negative x. So what we're going to see here visually is that this is just shifting everything up 3 units. So let's take a look at that. I'll do that one in blue. So if I take 0 and I add 3 to it, 1, 2, 3, and again if I take 1, negative 1 and just add 1 to each one, and if I take this little guy and I add 3 to it, 1, 2, 3, of course by symmetry, what you see is that it simply just adds 3 to each y value. So this blue one that I have here is going to be y is equal to negative absolute value of x plus 3. Now there's nothing unique about the absolute value actually. So if you ever see a function and you slap a minus sign in front of it, that actually does change the sign of each y value. And if you add something to the outside of the function, it just shifts it up or down. And we're going to generalize all these results next.